Hi guys. So, what it's like to have a hidden disease. I think it's quite an important thing to discuss because for those of us with chronic fatigue syndrome or other diseases that are not sort of visible, it's one of the most difficult things to deal with. And of course, you've got all these symptoms which are bad enough with their varying degrees of severity. And then on top of that is the difficulty of dealing with people around you who don't really get it. And they see sort of maybe walking around or not walking around, or sometimes, we can look as though we're functioning quite normally, when in fact inside we are really struggling, really struggling. And I think it's one of the most difficult things to deal with. And people with all maybe good intent, you can have people giving you advice, which is very often completely crazy for chronic fatigue syndrome. Like, oh, well, you just need to get out, get some fresh air, have a good walk, and it's really difficult not to feel upset, angry, irritated. I think it's really important too that you don't, you try to deal with any emotional feelings of anger or upset with people who try to do that, because probably most of the time they're just trying to help. And, sometimes the advice may be misguided and comes from misunderstanding. So, what can you do about dealing with that? It's tricky, isn't it? Because, sometimes it's even the people who love you most, your nearest and dearest, who may sort of understand that you have this syndrome, but they still don't quite get it. And sometimes it can be very subtle, like when you ring up to cancel an event or something because you're feeling so ill, and they maybe try to pressurize you into coming, saying, "Come on, you'll be fine, and that it's just not going to be possible for you." And then, of course, what gets loaded on top of that is this awful feeling of guilt, that you're not functioning properly, and you're not seeing your friends, and they're beginning to resent it, or you can't do things like housework, or you need support with things like looking after your kids, or you have to take some time off work. All those things are incredibly difficult to deal with, because as well as feeling that other people are maybe judging you, or thinking that maybe you could do more to help yourself, there is that awful feeling that you put pressure on yourself and feel guilty about all those things. So on top of all your symptoms, you then have those things to deal with. And I get it, it's not easy at all. It's really, really difficult. And one thing I would suggest is not to have a trigger reaction of, well, there isn't anything I can do, so everybody else could just sort of go away, because actually there are things you can do. But when people try to give you advice who don't have chronic fatigue syndrome and tell you should get out and walk more, it's really easy to say, of course I can't do that. Because, they're coming from a position of not understanding. But of course, you can do things, but you have to do them at a particular level for you. And that's where it can become a little bit tricky, because you're having this sort of knee-jerk reaction against somebody giving you advice who doesn't understand. But that actually can lead to not doing anything for yourself. So you need to really, really, really get in touch with yourself and try not to worry about what other people say, or what other people who don't have chronic fatigue syndrome say to you or judge you or anything, and try to let all of that go. And you need to try and just get in touch with yourself and what you need. And yes, you can do things to recover, but you need to do it on your own terms and according to what your body needs. So yeah, it's incredibly difficult, and I really, really get that. But don't allow that those feelings of judgment, guilt, etc., to actually stop you from starting your own recovery. So please do ask any questions in the comment box about this. And all the best to you. Bye for now.